Speaking of impeachment, let's check in with Congressman Bruce Westerman. We've got Congressman Bruce Westerman back on the line with us. Congressman Westerman, thanks so much for calling in, sir. We appreciate it.
Hey, good to be with you, Paul. Good to be back in Arkansas. I got on the late flight out of D.C. last night. I'm back in the natural state.
I'm glad that you are. I really am. Can you please walk us through this week and having to sit through the impeachment and listening to all those Democrats?
It was unreal. Just the things that were said, and when you really back off and look at this whole process, I had to actually know a guy that's a psychiatrist, and I asked him. I said, "What is it called when you do something and you turn around and point your finger at somebody else and say they did it?" He said, "There's actually a psychological disorder called projection, psychological projection, I think is what he called it, and it's almost maybe it's a side symptom of Trump derangement syndrome, but in so many things, the Democrats do something and then turn around and say, look, the Republicans did it. And I started observing their actions from that perspective. And if you think about, even the first thing they came after the president on Russian collusion, and you look at what they did with the Steele dossier and Fusion GPS and misusing the FBI and the FISA courts, horrible things that they did, and then they turn around and point at the president and say, you interfered in the elections. You had the Russians interfered in the election. And then this after the Mueller report, and they didn't get where they wanted to get with that, just almost immediately it's you're going for quid pro quo against the Ukrainians. We're going to withhold U.S. aid to try to get what you wanted from them. Right on top of a video of Joe Biden openly talking about how he went to Ukraine, not to even some other country, but to Ukraine, and said, if you don't do this, if you don't fire this prosecutor, you're not going to get the money. Bragging about it. And even yesterday, we had this vote on, they're trying to change the tax law that we passed. And, the Democrat motto is Republicans give tax breaks to the wealthy, and we're for the middle income, blah, 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 which the Tax Cut and Jobs Act did more to benefit lower income and middle income than anything I've ever seen a Democrat do. And they passed this bill yesterday to give a tax break on state and local tax deductions that affects about 1% of the wealthiest people in our country. It just, and they were in their debate talking about how they were helping the poor and the middle class, and what they did had absolutely zero, nada, nothing to do with low-income people. And I guess if you've got the media on your side, you can get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, they're helping. What are they helping? Rich liberals in blue states. That's what they're. That's
yeah,
what they're
it's for
helping
it. So it allows you to deduct more than $10,000 in interest on your mortgage every year. Is what the law that they had in place there. And we capped that in the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it affects very few people in Arkansas. But you've got to. It's complicated in the math, but I can tell you it's for the what they did was for extremely rich people.
Yeah, exactly.
But they used the argument they were helping low-income people.
Yes.
And they're just sitting there, and our guys we were calling it out. Saying, you're wrong. Here's the data. Here's the facts. And I'm sure they'll be lauded as fighting for the low income.
So you're exactly right, and the projection is real. They do project the very thing they're guilty on their opponents, and you laid it out really nice there, Congressman Westerman. Now we have the Speaker threatening, I guess, to not send the articles of impeachment to the Senate, and the House managers to actually give the Senate, to start the Senate process. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, what is she trying to leverage?
It's projection again. She's saying the Senate won't have a fair trial, and you're like, did that just come out of her mouth? Like, how can she even remotely say something like that after the circus that she orchestrated in the House, to say she's concerned about a fair process in the Senate? It absolutely. I guess they're getting what they want, because stuff like that drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's true. It drives everybody crazy. Well, I mean, I heard Mitch McConnell. Well, let me ask you this: why do they have to wait on her to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate? I mean, the vote's taking place. It's up at House.gov or whatever. I mean, you can see it right there. I mean, why can't Mitch McConnell just exercise his authority and dismiss this whole thing?
Well, and I think it's an area where the Constitution doesn't specifically say they have to transmit, but the way the House and the Senate works is when we pass a bill, we transmit that bill to the Senate, and we can hold bills in the House. So I think that's the process that they're using. The Senate, and that's all in rules. The Senate makes their rules. I guess the Senate could go in with a simple majority vote and change a rule and say that if we don't get a impeachment papers within 2 days after they pass the House, we refuse to hear them. I mean, you could start playing that game, but all of this stuff they've been through, and now they're saying, we're just not going to send the impeachment documents over to the Senate. And I think there's procedurally they can probably do that, but who would have ever imagined that was their plan? And to say we're not going to send it because the process won't be fair in the Senate.
Yeah. Congressman Bruce Westerman.
And this idea of calling witnesses. The Senate has no more power to call witnesses than the House did. They put together a hurried up sham document, and they were, they didn't want to go through the process to force witnesses to come, but they're saying the Senate now has to force those witnesses to come that they couldn't make come.
Yeah.
It's just, nothing surprises me that comes out of Nancy Pelosi's mouth or any of her colleagues anymore.
Congressman Bruce Westerman, we're out of time, sir. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you so much for giving us your take on this, and keep strong. Be encouraged. The people of Arkansas have got your back, and we appreciate you representing us.
Thanks, Paul. You have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
All righty.
God
yes,
bless.
Sir. Folks, got to take a break. Back in just a moment.